And I'm going to tell you this, the thoughts that I had scared me for the first time in my life. And I'm going to be very, very frank and honest on this podcast because this is what we're trying to do. Yes, I had planned to kill this man.
Wow.
That is not what I thought you were going to say.
I know. I'm a grown man, but I had
I made it through the rough time. I made it through the tough time. I made it through the bad time. So now I gotta get mine. Gotta weather the storm. Gotta get mine. Gotta weather the storm. I gotta get mine. Gotta weather the storm. Okay. One day we gon' get on.
Welcome to Bailey and Buck Unplugged, sponsored by Iconic Agua, where we talk about sports, entertainment, and mental health in support of the Kennedy Kids Foundation, where we aim to prevent teen suicide and promote mental health. On that note, we always like to mention, if you are struggling and you feel like you need help, you're not sure where to go, dial 988. That is a free crisis lifeline available to every single person out there. If you're looking for other resources, you can go to kennedykids.org, click on the resources tab, and we have a ton of information available for you there as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our hosts. I am Misty Book. I am an author and a mental health and performance coach to the stars, as my co-host Robert Bailey likes to say. And my iconic co-host Robert Bailey is also here today. He is the president of Rosenhaus Sports. He's had this incredible career in football, including Super Bowl championships. We got an ESPY. We got an NFL record, all kinds of stuff. But I think what he's most proud of is his role as a father and his role in the Kennedy Kids Foundation, which he started after the passing of his daughter, who we lost to suicide a couple years ago. Also joining us today is Bailey Brooks Mashford. Now, Bailey's going to bring the energy today like she always does. We love her so much. She is a former NFL cheerleader. She is the executive director of Kennedy Kids Foundation. And she also happens to, in her spare time, be a celebrity wedding and event planner. I don't know how she finds time to do all these things. But speaking of finding time to do all these things, guys, we have an incredible guest today. I am so excited to welcome the iconic Terry Crews. Now, you all know that he's a movie star. You know that he's a major television host on shows like America's Got Talent. Y'all know he's a former football player, right? But this guy also finds time to produce these major, incredible hot projects in Hollywood. And I hear he has more stuff in the works, so hopefully we hear about some of that today. And I recently learned that he's also an author and an artist, which I am personally super excited to also learn a little bit more about today. And then on top of that, he was also named the Times Person of the Year in 2017 as a part of a group that was organized for speaking out against sexual harassment. Now, if that's not amazing, I don't know what is, because I mean, talk about having guts and courage to come forward and talk about these things. We're just going to dig into all of this. But perhaps the thing that maybe he's most proud of is his role as a father and a husband. At least that's what I've picked up from all of the interviews and stuff that he's done. So I could go on and on and on, but you're not here to hear from me. You're here to hear from Terry Crews. So Terry, thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, man, it's my pleasure. It is my pleasure to be here with my boy, Rob. I mean, we go back so long, and it's a pleasure to meet you, Bailey. And Misty, where were you when I was in the NFL? I needed you.
I'm still here. Good news.
Oh my God, my mental health was all messed up back then. I tell you that right now. And thank you for what you're doing for celebrities and athletes. And Bailey, it's a pleasure to meet you. And Robert, come on, man.
Yeah.
I got your back all day long. Thank you guys.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you coming on. I want everybody to know that you are one of the kindest people. And you're obviously big and opposing, and some of your early roles in the movies, you were the tough guy, but somehow you found your way to being that big guy, but also in a comedic role, and it lent to a lot of your early success, and also says a lot about all the different type of characters you can play. Speaking of characters, man, I want the audience to hear, what kind of kid were you in elementary school? We know where you are today, but in elementary school at that age, were you the type of kid that got bullied a lot, or did you do the bullying?
Oh, I got bullied big
Right.
time because I was it's wild. I came up in Flint, Michigan, and I was what you would call a religious kid. My mother was very, very religious, and we weren't allowed to do a lot of things. We weren't allowed to dance. I wasn't allowed to go to the movies. Could not listen to secular music, all this stuff. So we were always kind of on the outs, and it was wild. My mother was the kind of mom who couldn't wear pants. She couldn't wear makeup. I mean, super religious, right?
Is this Seventh-day Adventist?
No, this is actually Church of God in Christ.
Oh, okay.
Church of God in Christ. And there was a lot of shouting and, we were in church nonstop, like 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. Like,
Wow.
we'd be at church from 10 to 4 and then go home and eat and come back at 7 and do it again. I was like, oh, help me.
Oh my
So I got bullied a lot because I didn't cut. There were so many things I couldn't do. They were like, what's wrong with this dude?
Right.
Was a clown. When I say class clown.
Right. That's how you got the attention you wanted.
Yeah, it was the thing. It was one of those things where I learned to be funny in order to get people to like me.
Right.
But another reason that I needed to be funny is because my father was very, very abusive. One of my earliest memories, like when I was 5 years old, was my father knocking my mother out.
Right.
And
Wow.
I mean, my mother on the ground and him standing over her saying, look what you made me do. And he let me know, hey, that's the rule. You run the world, bro. My father was not a small man. He was a giant in my eyes. And what was really crazy and difficult was it was a very sad life. Like in the house with all the religion and all the things we couldn't do. And then on top of that, the abuse my mother was going through. What I would do, I remember one of my earliest memories as well is my mother holding some frozen peas on her eye.
Wow.
She had a black eye, and I would try to make her laugh. And one thing I would do is do dances and say jokes and copy things and walk around like people, and she'd be cracking up with her peas on her eye. And I knew I had a superpower.
That's your superpower.
I said, if she instead of making my mother cry, if I can make her happy in this time, this will be my gift forever. And I always had this. So it was a thing where, in classes, I would be goofing off and everything. And that was my thing. If you look at my earliest report cards, it was like, Terry's a good student. He's respectful, but he won't stop goofing around. You know what I mean? But I got the attention of everybody.
And you know what?
But let me tell you, my only experience with bullying, and this is the thing, I remember this, and it was so amazing. I was on a bus, and this was when I was a little bit older. I would say it was in junior high school. This was more 7th grade. And there was a kid who had these really high pants. And back in the day, you were either Michael Jackson or you just couldn't afford pants. You know what I mean? Right. And my man was the latter, okay? And I was joking on this dude, and I was loving it. And wait, the bus was cracking up. Right. And I was like, ooh, my superpower, I'm using it for evil. You know what I mean? Right. And I wouldn't stay. I stayed on this kid all on the bus nonstop. And people were laughing. And I watched this young man go into a shell, into a hole. Wow. He just went. He had nothing to say. He was speechless, but I wouldn't stop. But let me tell you what happened. There was this young lady, and her name was Beth, and everybody loved Beth. Beth was superstar. She was so smart. She was pretty. She was everything, but she was very quiet. And Beth stood up at the end of she's in the back of the bus, and she stood up. She said, stop. And she screamed.
Wow.
And the whole bus went, And I looked at her like, yeah, what? She said, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I was like, she said, Jerry, you are better than that.
Wow.
Listen, it changed my life. Changed my life.
How old was she?
Oh, she was same age as me, 7th grade. We all in 7th grade together.
Wow.
I mean, she was so respected and so loved because she was so smart and sweet. And right now, she's actually she's a social worker in the Blint area right now and works with kids and families in Blint. And
I was going to ask you, do you know her?
I was going to ask too. Good. Yeah, I was like, are you guys still friends?
Most likely to succeed. We went to the same school from 7th grade all the way to senior year. And she was most likely to succeed along with me. Now, believe me, I learned my lesson in 7th grade. I will never do comedy at someone else's expense. If you look at my comedy, it's always about me.
Right.
From Spice to Friday After Next to White Chicks to Longest Yard. I'm the joke.
Yeah.
It's never at someone else's expense. It's never, look at this guy. He's
right.
Down. It's really about making fun of manliness or making fun of, popping my pegs or doing all that stuff, But I learned at a young age that bullying is hurtful. It crushes people. And this is before social media. This is back in the day. This is like 1980, right? But knowing that, I've taken this from the elementary school all the way up. And it was one of those things, even I remember being bullied, but it's funny because when the switch happened and I was the guy and I got bloodlust on it, you know what I mean? It was kind of like, yeah, here I am. And I'm not here to say that I'm innocent. You know what I mean? This thing was like, I was guilty as charged. And let me tell you, I begged Beth to forgive me. Beth would talk to me for the next couple of days.
Wow.
She was so respected. And I was like, and I remember just running up to her like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And she wouldn't talk to me. She'd keep walking. And I was like, oh my God, I gotta do anything to gain Beth's trust back.
And what did you do?
After a couple of days, I finally cornered her. I was like, Beth, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have never done that. And she looked at me and she said, I know you're sorry. I know. But you better than that, Jerry. You are better than that.
Oh, wow.
Man, I get choked up.
This is a
That's like a
13-year-old child, like counseling another 12, 13.
Yeah, this is like a pivotal moment.
Experience. Like,
you see, like, to me, when your peers, when the people you're around, and this is why you got to be very, very careful about your environment. And one thing, remember now, I was growing up in Flint, Michigan, where most of the schools, I happened to get picked to go to the school with kids who were picked for their skills. I had a skill as an artist. Beth was super smart. There were all kind of people at the school who wanted to be in school. And the environment was one of encouragement. The environment was one of, we checked each other, and it was a beautiful thing. But I know a lot of people who don't have that environment.
Right.
The environment is more about putting people down. It's about competing with each other and fighting with each other. And that was the one thing that saved me, even with all the things that were going on in my house and it was my peers. Listen, my best friend, and growing up, we made a vow because when I was a kid, I was in the dark about a lot of things,
Right. We all were.
Man, my father would never tell me nothing. And I remember me and my friend, we would be like, man, like, why won't these men tell us how to be men? Because that was my thing. I just wanted to know how to be a man, right?
Right.
So I made a vow with my best friend. His name was Darwin. And I said, hey, man, if you find out something that I don't know, promise me you'll tell me. And if I find out something you don't know, I promise to tell you.
Wow.
These are the kind of vows that peers, and we were all kids. But this is the thing. This is stuff that kids know. And when you have a friend like this and you have people to trust, it changed my life forever. But had I not had that, I don't know where I would be right now. I really, really am honestly saying, because my father and then my mother was so religious. Like I was asked about sex and she would never tell me, like, you don't talk about sex. Are you doing it? Are you doing it? I was like, no, I'm not, I was so scared to talk about anything with my parents that I went to my peers. And I was fortunate that I had the people who could tell me the right thing. Because
Right.
if they would have told me the wrong thing, I probably would have believed it,
That's interesting. That's a great story, man. You know, just listening to you talk about that event in your life on the bus and what she means to you, to the point where you start getting choked up. It says a lot about your heart and how much you care, right? Because a lot of kids, man, majority of kids would have laughed it off and kept it moving, right? No matter what they did to that kid, no matter what she said, they would have got off that bus and kept it moving. But it says to me, you had a good heart back then as a child. You had a good heart. Maybe it was going to church all the time,
right?
Right. Learning that early, the religion, the impact, going to church, trying to do the right thing all the time, just to stay on that youth. When I grew up, every summer we would try to find a job, like odd jobs. And I just want to know, what odd job did you do or jobs did you do before you became a professional? Go through the list of jobs. I want people to know what kind of jobs we did. But without the internet, what was their job? I did a lot of, I would cut yards. I worked at a nursery, a plant nursery. I'm talking about high school, like working in Publix. Tell me all the odd jobs you did.
Oh man! First of all, my father, again, he was not playing. He was like, "I'm gonna teach you guys how to do whatever." We wake us up at 4 a.m.
Wow!
And we would do lawns all over Flint. And I mean, we had a pickup truck, and he had the lawnmower. We load up the lawnmower with the rakes, and this is what was so horrible, man, because it was a horrible job. And in the fall, we in school and the whole thing too, but he would make us go every weekend. We'd be out there because that's when the leaves were good. That's when we were going to make them.
Yeah.
But he would leave us out there all day and then take the money. We didn't even get the money.
My God.
Lawn, and then wait. And then in the winter, we shovel snow. And dude, my father, and this is the thing, it was so crazy once we got, we would learn, okay, this is how we can make some money, right? So me and my brothers tried to do it on our own without my father doing it, right?
Right.
And then my father would come in and be like, how much money y'all got? And because we were so religious, we wouldn't lie. We'd be like,
right.
Like 200, I saved up about $200. He'd be like, give me that money.
Wow.
And our father would come take our money. And
there were no child labor laws back then.
Oh my God. He's like, this what y'all living in my room? That money, my money.
Rent. Well, it's
And
so
it was
cool that
horrible. It was horrible.
Your first job was an artist, though, like in the arts, was the courtroom sketching part, right? So that was
right. But I wanted to get to that because I said, okay, this is crazy because I don't want to be doing lawns and shoveling snow. But remember, because I was so religious and we couldn't do anything, one thing I could do was sit in my room and draw. And what I remember people talking about movies and talking about all the movies they were going to see and all that. So I couldn't go, but what I would do is draw the movies. And I would draw what I thought the movies were.
Wow.
Jaws and Star Wars and all that. And I would draw all day. And they created this amazing imagination. And, a lot of things people think are their downfall or even the religious stuff, it created a skill in me. And I could draw really, really well. I was getting awards and the whole thing. And right after I went to college, I had a scholarship in art, not football. My scholarship was in art. And when I came back from my first year in college, I went down to WJRT TV 12 in Flint, Michigan, and showed my portfolio, and the art director hired me. And then there was a lot of, this is back in the old days on the news, when you had to draw the backgrounds. This is before computers and all this stuff. So if there was a murder, you would draw the chalk line, and then the police. Right. Y'all was doing it. And I would do the backgrounds for what happened in the news. And then they said, listen, we got a big court case. The courtroom sketch artist is from Chicago. He couldn't make it. Terry, we need you to go do it was the biggest murder case in Flint, Michigan history.
Wow. 6
people were murdered in one house, in a drug house.
How old were you then?
Oh, I was 18. This was a college. This is my first real lights. And the thing is, he said, can you do it? And I just said, yes, without even thinking. And then I was like, I don't know how to do this. Anyway, right? And I went in the courtroom, and I drew all the jurors, and I drew the defendants, and I drew the accused. And I was like, oh, and dude, they loved it. I was like, it was my first job in entertainment. It was my first real gig. And the director said, Terry, he said, you got a future in this. He said, when you come back next summer, I want you to, keep doing it and the whole thing. But I never went back to Flint because I stayed, Flint was dying, and I knew to get out.
Right.
Those kind of gigs taught me so much. Like, I learned to say yes.
Right.
Because I was scared. I didn't know what I was doing, but I said yes anyway. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of times, and I want to talk about how, kids right now feel like if they don't have 1 million followers, or if they're not as big or as good as Beyonce, then why even try?
Yep.
But I didn't have that. I didn't have anything to compare myself to.
Right.
And that could be, it's called the sin of comparison. You're always looking, but most of the time with social media, you're looking at people who have better, and they doing better, and they doing this better, but they're not telling the truth. A lot of this is not true.
Right.
And they got it all together, just like everyone thinks celebrities have it all together. But dude, I was scared. I was lonely. I didn't know what I was doing. And I did it anyway. And I'm thankful, because there were people, by doing, I got to learn. You know what I mean?
Right.
A lot of kids feel like, well, I might as well not even try because I'm not that good. And this is another thing I want to talk about, is the term is self-talk.
Mm-hmm.
Self-talk is real.
Yes.
You're always going to hear these voices. You're always going to hear a voice of negativity. The world is wired like that. It actually keeps you safe in a lot of ways, because you say, well, you got to watch out for these things and these bad things. So you're always looking and skeptical about things.
Right.
Truth is, when you talk to yourself, you have to always be positive about who you are.
Right.
Always. But what happens is you start to pick up where it feels like you're being realistic by being negative about yourself.
Yeah,
You know
I
what
call
mean?
those hater thoughts. So I'm like,
Yes.
those are my hater thoughts. Like, there they go again.
Yeah.
Listen, especially growing up religious, there was tons of hater thoughts. You know what I mean?
Right.
You sinner saved by grace. You ain't going there. You just
Yeah.
trying to get in. And let me tell you, once I started hearing people said, when that general manager said, Terry, you are good, that hit me. It changed me.
Right.
Just one voice that said, Terry, you are good. One voice from Beth who said, Terry, you're better than that. Like, those things pierced my heart because I never heard it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I started to change the way I talk to myself. And I have to tell you this, even now, I am 56 years old. I host the biggest talent show in the world. And I wake up in the morning and I tell myself, I deserve success.
Wow.
Right now. Because it's so wild how you can, if you don't do this, you slowly start to doubt yourself. You slowly start to, well, I'm not that good and I'm not that. But the confidence you have to have the confidence to do the job correctly.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And this is why I'm always telling people to watch your self-talk. I actually had to stop listening to music that told me I was no good.
Right.
Well, so I used to work for a company who shall not be named because they're not a sponsor, but they used to teach us like when we were moving crowds, because I used to like do large speeches, that when they would train us for our own self-talk and the mental health to support what you were saying, is that there's a portion of your brain that does not have the ability to determine between a truth and a lie. So it's always going to believe what it hears you say to yourself constantly, which is why you should only say positive things to yourself about yourself on a consistent basis, because that portion of your brain is going to act based on what you presented. And since it can't tell the difference, if you're telling it the negative things, then the negative things will also apply. And
It also doesn't know the it doesn't know the difference between reality and what's fake anyway. So like the most amazing thing could be going on and you could say, oh, that's whatever. And your brain is still believing that because it's what it's feeding.
And you're not, and it's not accurate. It's not an accurate view of what's happening. And I let me tell you, there were so many times, especially when we got into the NFL, and I'm gonna tell this story because it's so crazy. We had a coach, and this coach, when I was on the Rams, and I was in the Rams with Robert, this coach berated me so bad. He literally, I remember I would do good things in practice and he would zoom through it while we were watching the film. And the star linebacker, Kevin Green, he was the star. I was his backup. He's like, Terry did jump good. He was like, don't worry, he ain't gonna be here.
Wow.
And wait, and I'm like, all I wanted was to make this team. You gotta understand, it was everything in my life.
That's the tour moment. The tour moment.
Dude. And I was going, dude, what are you talking? And you know what he called me? He called me Tyrone. And I said,
on purpose?
Listen, I said, my name is Terry, coach. He said, I like Tyrone. Your name's going to be Tyrone.
Wow.
It was so disrespectful.
Wow.
And it hurt me to my core. Like he would say, listen, man, you don't like it? You get an apple and a bus ticket. This is what he would tell us. He would tell me, you don't like it? You don't like your name being Tyrone? Apple and a bus ticket.
Wow.
And I shut up and I didn't say anything. And I thought he was playing with me. Like I thought this was Officer and a Gentleman, where, this guy was gonna just try to make it hard, but he really means because he believed in me. You know what I mean? So I and then they cut me.
Oh. Wow.
Then to be berated like this and then sit out in the street. And I'm gonna tell you this, the thoughts that I had scared me for the first time in my life. And I'm gonna be very, very frank and honest on this podcast because this is what we're trying to do.
Yes.
I had planned to kill this man.
Wow.
That is not what I thought you were going to say.
I know. I'm a grown man, but I had a whole thing laid out. Listen, I was married with kids, the whole thing. I said, I cannot let this man get away with treating me like he did. I mean, I was damaged. When I say damaged, my brain was like, this dude, I let him get away with this.
Right. You felt like he took something away from you.
No, he was mad he didn't channel his inner Beth in that moment.
Oh, no, I wasn't. First of all, I was too open. Like, you know what I mean? When you just try to please and try to make things right, and somebody goes in there and just punches you right in your heart.
Right.
And I said, and I remember planning it, and it scared me to death.
Terry, what was the plan?
Oh, Jesus.
I want to hear the plan.
No,
I want to hear the plan.
But you know, Ram Park, right?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, I was waiting.
It's going to be.
Listen, but I'm going to tell you this, and this is where it scared me so much. I stopped. I remember living in Oakwood. We lived in Oakwood at the time, which was
I remember
Oakwood.
Yeah.
When you cut, I can't just jump out. I was just like sitting there floundering. Like, I don't know where to go, what to do. And I remember it scared me so much. I remember praying and I said, these thoughts, I have to get rid of these thoughts.
Mm.
And then something hit me, and that just was so beautiful. It said, Terry, you have to choose different thoughts.
Yeah.
listen, it blew. And then I started to get where the thoughts that I'm thinking aren't mine. Because the thought was kill this man. Okay.
Right.
But I started to realize that's not me. The real me is bigger than that. Remember, the real me is better than that. So, but the thoughts were coming. So it depended on which ones I chose. Am I better than that? Or am I going with the darkness? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there going, I'm a father, I'm a husband. This would ruin everything about my life. It would make me feel bad. I had to think about this stuff. And I said, I'm going to choose better thoughts.
That's great, man.
And every time it came, I had to push it out of my brain. And so I'm not choosing that. You have to say it, like, I'm not going to choose that. And one thing I want to let everybody know out there is that your thoughts don't come from you. But you are not your thoughts. You are the person that chooses those thoughts.
Right.
It's a different way of thinking. You know what I mean? It's kind of like what happens is you start to think, that's me. I can't stop it. I got to do it. I guess it's me. No, you are the person. Like, it's like all the thoughts are presented and you can choose which ones you're going to pick.
I love it.
You can choose whether you are better than this. You can choose those great thoughts that says, I am a good person. You know what I mean? And it helped because I didn't do it, thank God.
Yeah, thank God.
I look back and it's one of those things where I don't know where it came from. And I have to say, it probably was because I was married and probably because my wife was always speaking good things to me. You know,
she's amazing. She's an amazing woman. She's an amazing woman.
She replaced those peers that would believe in me, but she was like, Terry, you're going to make it. You're better than this. She replaced the peers, but now I had in my house someone who was like, we're going to make it no matter what.
Was there a football player? Was there a football player that you also didn't like? Was there that mirrored that coach? That someone, because sometimes there's bullies on teams too. Because I dealt with that. There was a guy that I felt the way you felt about that coach. There was a guy that I felt, this was a guy on my team for the Ravens. He would call me the N-word. He was a white dude. And I told the other players, because I wanted to kick his ass, and we would fight to the point where they would separate us, and I would say to the other guys, I can't believe you guys, like, this dude just called me the N-word, and they didn't do anything because he was a star on the team. And I obviously didn't want to get cut.
You didn't want an apple and a bus ticket?
So I didn't want to get cut. So I had to keep it within me and my teammates. I didn't go to the head coach. I didn't go to the general manager. I didn't do any of that. But I hated this dude I wanted to kill him. I thought about meeting him in the parking lot. And so for the most part, they would keep us separated in practice. And obviously the team did nothing because they needed him. We were on a Super Bowl run. So they needed him. So I understand. So that's why I asked you that question. Was there ever a player that you felt this way about?
I'm going to do you one better. There were bad players. Nobody was worse than this coach. But let me tell you, when I revisited this, literally probably in 2016, when the head of William Morris Endeavor molested me in front of a whole party full of people with my wife right next to me, and this is a white dude at my agency.
Right.
And I'm the only black dude in the room. And here the Dick Seltzer feelings came back to me. You understand? This is why that story makes a whole lot of sense in context to even now.
By the way, you just mentioned the coach.
Yeah, I was over here like this.
You just mentioned Dick Seltzer.
And I'm serious, trying to say, when this agent, whose name was Adam Bennett, who was head of the William Morris, was the motion picture department at William Morris, came down and treated me like a slave.
Right.
And I said, I've given you millions of dollars. And he just treated me like nothing.
Right.
And I'm gonna tell you, it all came back about killing this man, the thoughts, doing all that. But I knew better. Like I had already went through the stuff with Seltzer. And I knew, okay, it's much better to think my way out of this situation than fight my way out of it. And what I decided to do was go public. I knew my power was in, wait a minute, you can't do this. It was a much more powerful thing because, listen, I never was able to go public against the coach at the Rams because nobody would have believed it. They would have been like, oh man, you just got cut. You just weren't good enough. I remember going, my coach at the time, my agent at the time was Tom Condon from IMG. Remember back in the day? And I was like, man, can I sue him? He was like, Terry, get real. Because I was talking about how affected I was, but no one was listening.
Right.
I look at the players now and the fact that they have mental health professionals to talk to, because I needed you, Misty, back then.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I would have been right in your office.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, why I'm having these really dangerous thoughts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? About harming other people, you know? But some people have thoughts like that about harming themselves.
That's originally what I thought your story was going to be, was that you were going to be saying that you wanted to yourself. And then you said, so that's why I was like, wait, that's not what I was betting for. Yeah.
But I knew players who've been through it because it's the thing, you know, I played with so many guys that have killed themselves. You know what I mean? I played with Junior Seau.
Yeah, very good friend of mine. Yeah.
And your whole existence is this. And all of a sudden, when you're not that anymore, what are you? And this is why your self-talk is so important because you define who you are.
Right.
You know what I mean? No one else, you can't let anyone else define who you are. You have to choose and you make those choices. And I just thank God because when I went public, and people thought, oh my God, the big Terry Crews, whatever, this is crazy. It doesn't make sense. He's a man, he's a giant, he's this and this. But I knew what I was fighting. And what it was like, hey man, I'm standing up for the Terry Crews that was abused back in the first year of the NFL. I'm standing up for the little kid that was bullied in elementary school. You know what I mean? I'm standing up for who Terry Crews is. And people didn't understand it at the time. But it's so great in hindsight because you got to understand there were so many people who were like, Terry, I went through that same thing, man. Grown men, wrestlers, football players, they were like, dude, I was sexually assaulted when I was in high school by a doctor. People would pull me to the side. I would be at parties and be at events, and they would be in tears. And they would say, tell you my story, man. Please, let me tell you my story. And I went, this is a problem. This is major. But that's why, you know, it's one of those things where I'm thankful for therapy because another thing is when I was, coming up younger, and the religious thing, therapy was viewed as quackery. They were you're crazy. That was the problem. Like you either needed God, and if God didn't help you, that was it. But I needed to talk through this. Yeah, we need God, but I also need to be talked through what is happening in my brain right now.
Well, God sent therapists, so let's
thank you.
Just say that.
And now and I just thank God. Because I did go to therapy and I did talk this out and I had to figure out what made me tick, why, these thoughts weren't mine. And it was freeing and it was beautiful because I realized for the first time, I could choose my thoughts. wait a minute, I can make a decision about what thoughts I'm going to let in, just like I could change the knob on the radio or change from one song to the next.
Make my way downtown. Sorry.
Sorry. She had to do it.
Let me tell you, it's a breakthrough, and I don't mind sharing the fact, because again, I've been through a lot, but people feel like we don't ever go through anything. You know what I mean? And I want to let people know, and it surprised a lot of people. They were like, Terry, you just like me. I'm like, yes, I am. You know what I mean? Yeah.
A lot of people aren't like openly feeling like people just don't feel like they're in a safe space to openly share all of this information. And I think what people typically generally forget, especially about NFL athletes, and as you know, it's not part of my introduction, but I'm a mother to 5, and they start like 28, 23, 22, and 20, and then 11. And, you know, there's point where you guys are going into the NFL. That's point is like such a critical point, like where you're just becoming a young man, a young adult, and people see you guys out there on the field and you're like machines and they're betting on you and you're supposed to win, and you're supposed to represent and do all this stuff. But they forget you're freaking kids. Like these are kids on the field that are dealing with adult issues, with adult money, with adult agents, with adult people in the industry who are no longer people who actually care about them from the standpoint of, I want you to succeed mentally. I want you to just succeed and make me as much money as possible because I make a percentage of everything you give me, and I'm going to do what I've always done to you because this is how I've been successful with other people. But that industry hasn't been changing. Like I don't know, are they, Robert, introducing, because you would know with your new players, are they introducing therapists when you guys are bringing on new talent into new things? Are you guys introducing them to it? Hey, as you go along, like add therapy as part of your regimen. Don't just work on your body and work on your times and work on your hitting someone in the head. Like also like keep your mind right at the same time and bring someone along to counsel you. Like, do you guys do that when you bring in new athletes? And I don't know.
Well, let me tell you about, our business. And that's why we're talking now, because it's still very, very taboo. Talking about mental health for some guys, I talk to guys and I can tell, and I'll say to them, hey, listen, let's get you some help. You're depressed. And they'll say, no, I'm good. I'm not depressed. I'm good. The few guys, and obviously I'm not at liberty to say their names, the few guys that said yes were guys that had already retired. They're the ones that said, I can't deal moving forward with things that happened to me in the past and what's happening to me today. And I've helped them, happily help them. But at the very beginning, telling a 20, 21-year-old, listen, you need to do this, and mental health, they look at you and they say, I don't need that. I'm fine. I don't need mental health. They don't even realize that they have been traumatized yet. Wow. It typically takes a level of maturity for you to look back and say, this coach traumatized me. And being traumatized starts in Little League, especially at Terry and our age. When you started playing football, Little League, they traumatized. They cuss at you. They scream in your face. They tell you you're not going to be anything. Talk about the negative attacks on you as a young child. So by the time they get to 20, 21, going into the NFL, all they think about is the money and what they need to do to make the team. And just like you said, the majority of people around them are all older. You're older. The team executives are older. We as agents are older. They're coming into a locker room where there's older guys. They just want to do whatever is told to them so they make the team, right? So that hopefully one day it changes where the NFL, when they bring them into the locker room and all the symposiums that the NFL does, they say it's mandatory, because they have a mandatory symposium that talks about the clubbing and the alcohol and the drugs, what not to do, and
the women.
what to do, and the women, and where to go when this happens. But they don't talk about the mental aspect. And hey, you all must see a mental therapist once a week so that we can get you through this season and you can understand what you're going through. Yeah, NFL, also, remember, it's the bottom line business. The NFL wants to win, but it always takes a guy like Terry Crews who's willing to talk about it, who when you look at him, your perception is strength, big, strong man. He could handle everything. But he's here talking about the mental aspect and how it broke him down. And it has nothing to do with how big his muscles are. It has everything to do with, it has everything to do with this guy who was in a higher position at his agency, who felt like, even though Terry's bigger and stronger than me, I still control this on his career, and I'm gonna do this.
No.
And it takes a lot. Terry, I just want to tell you, man, I'm so thankful that you are so open and willing to help, because you're talking about your story, and now these people are coming up to you saying, I've been through that. Thank you so much. Because you don't understand how many lives you've saved without even them telling you. Some people, I'm sure, because suicide is also it's not something they talk about. But trust me, man, you've saved a lot of lives and you don't even know it.
Bruh,
Yeah.
let me tell you, coming out, I knew my purpose. I learned not to live life on accident. I lived on purpose. And I knew if I did not say anything, the opportunity would be lost forever.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing, I was inspired by the women that were coming out at the time. Remember, this was about the beginning of the whole Me Too movement. And guys were dogging these women out. They were like, oh man, they just wanted to get on. That's how you got to do in Hollywood and the whole thing.
Right.
And I'm like, no, that happened to me.
Right.
But remember, at the time, I didn't say nothing.
Right. I remember.
It was between me and my agency. I had called them, but I didn't go public. And I would never, ever recommend that people go public. I would say go to a therapist, a counselor.
Right.
I'm just in the public eye. So I've been trained to do this, but I would never tell anybody to put their business out there like that.
Go
ahead.
Go ahead. Go finish.
No, I knew it would shock the world.
Did their reaction push you to go public? Or what was their reaction when you told them? Were they supportive? How did they react?
It was all smoke and mirrors. It was like, oh, we take this very seriously.
Yeah.
And remember, a whole year had went by. I went public a year later because they had done nothing. And I was like, why is this guy still working there?
Right.
They told me they were going to do something. And then they just hoped I forgot.
Did they finally fire him?
Oh, yeah. Finally. Well, listen, I spent $500,000 of my own money and sued William Morris Endeavor. They fought it. They fought it tooth and nail. You know what happened? All these other people came out the woodwork and joined the case. That's awesome.
Bravo.
He had been doing it to different people, women, men, everybody.
Bravo.
That
I'm a
was
child
his
of
thing. That
abuse,
was
so this is like a huge win.
He felt like he owned everybody.
Right.
Wow.
And now that I didn't make them go public, they came under my case and we presented it like under the arbitration. They were like, uh-oh. And all of a sudden they were like, we got to fire him.
Right.
You see what I mean? And I didn't want no money because people don't understand. The moment you go public, your opportunity for getting any money is over.
Right.
Silence. You don't get paid to tell.
Right.
People had
Were you nervous about being blackballed in the industry, Hollywood?
Listen to me. My wife, I'll tell you, she be right here. When I put those tweets out that said it happened, I came home and I said, babe, Hollywood is over. She went, what did you do? I told her. She was right there. I said, I told about Adam Bennett. She went, and you know what she said? And this is why I love this girl. I love this woman. He said, it was like this when you quit football. We gonna find something else. It's gonna be like this when we quit this.
That's why I love her, bro. She's so strong in her spirit.
Bruh, she was not blurred. She said, and then she told me, she said, Terry, ain't a woman in your life ain't been through this.
Right.
Your mom, your daughters, me. But she said, now.
Misty, Bailey.
Yep. Add it to the list.
Listen. And the thing is that here I am as a man. But she knew, she said, what an opportunity you have, Terry. She told me, she was like, you know how many people you can bless with this. We talked it out.
Right.
And we were together about going public, and we held hands and we went out, and she was right there with me. You look at all this stuff. She was like, see, look at it. I remember 50 Cent went off on me. He was like, oh, look at this big dude getting it. I said, hey, man, you're not too big to get assaulted.
Yeah.
It's like saying you're too big to get shot.
Right.
And Shannon Sharp said, hey, actually, you're the perfect size.
Right.
Hey, first of all, even if I beat the dude up, it don't mean
Right.
he didn't.
Right.
Right.
It didn't stop in reverse time, and all of a sudden
Right.
you're unassaulted now.
Right.
I mean, but this is another thing, and this is one thing I realized. There are a lot of people internalize these things and never ever deal with it, and it hurts you in so many ways. Like, you don't know how it's going to come out. You don't know. And this is where that's why I say you got to go to a therapist, a counselor, a best friend, and somebody you could share with and let your heart go, man. And I tell this to all ball players, and this is another thing I want to say. I know I've been long, but
Oh no, not long enough.
there's a thing called teen brain. And
Right.
I know because I have teenagers. They're all grown. My youngest is 19, my oldest is 37. And there's a perspective that they see the world that's not real. It's everything. It's almost like when you're a kid and you eat green beans for the first time, you're like, wow, this is look.
Right.
When you get older, your taste gets more sophisticated. But as a kid, your teen brain is everything is way more important than you could even quantify. Like, it's just too big for you.
Right.
And I remember talking to my kids, like, I was like, I think there's teen brain here, And they were, no, but Dad, it's really, and I said, but I understand. But they say this teen brain goes to about 25 years old.
Yeah, your brain is not statistically fully developed until you're 25 years old. And so you're right on
I'm
point
glad
with
the
that.
professional is backing me up, because I remember seeing this and hearing
It's true.
it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's
imagine
true.
the NFL player where I
Yes.
was. I wasn't even
Yeah.
25 going through this stuff with Dick Seltzer.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was teen brain.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was
Yeah.
going, why can't I function? What is wrong with me?
Wow.
But as of now,
Yeah.
I'm 56 and I can handle it. And I'm going, oh my God. I wasn't seeing the world correctly. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't. I had teen brain. And there was time, and this is why I feel for teenagers. I feel for kids, because it's the most real thing to them, because I know what it feels. And I just always have to reaffirm their value, their worth, who they are. Tell them the truth about how valuable they are, how wonderful they are, how they deserve success.
Yeah.
You can get this, but you have to earn it. You literally have to be, I say, you get these things because of you're just you.
Right.
You're wonderful. And you are awesome and amazing. And listen, and it sounds like, oh yeah, right, but it's the truth.
The truth.
It's the truth.
And all
You don't
challenges
have
are
to be
opportunities, right? We have to teach them that, because I think a lot of, especially younger people, they shut down. They haven't quite built the resilient, because they don't have the life experience that we have. So for them to, I have a 21-year-old stepdaughter. Well, she'll be 21 soon. And I'm always having this conversation with her, and she'll be like breaking down, just totally overwhelmed. And I'm like, whoa. Well, there's more options here. There's more solutions. Like you're looking at one side of the challenge. Let's look at other ways to resolve this. Don't let this shut you down. We can do this. Right?
Yeah. And the trick is they have to believe you. And sometimes you got to hold their hand. And I have to tell you, there's been many times when I've said it and I knew a kid didn't believe me.
Mhm.
Right.
That was hard. You know, it's hard. And like I said, if this thing with Kennedy's kids, if you could save one, you know,
Yeah.
one person. And
Yeah.
I know for a fact, my mindset was like, hey, if one person feels empowered and feels stronger because I'm telling my story, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not telling you as a professional. I'm just giving you the background, my story. And to know that life does get better.
Mhm.
And if it helps one person, it's worth it. It's worth it. And that's why
100%.
I love Kennedy's kids. I love what you guys are doing. I'm 100% behind it. And Robert is literally one of my best friends in the world. And the fact
I love you, bro.
one of the most unimaginable losses.
Yeah.
I still get choked up just thinking about what he is enduring and going through. I'm telling you, I just don't want that to happen to one other person. And
Yeah, I agree.
you understand. And I
Yeah.
love you, man. You are my brother. And what's so great is we've seen it from the
Yeah.
beginning. Us at
Yeah.
20. You know what I mean?
I
From the
can't imagine you two
beginning.
knuckleheads at 20.
Yeah.
Yes.
Terry, the one thing Terry and I, as he talked about earlier, that he said he was like the class clown. I was literally the class clown. And I was the class clown growing up my entire life in class. I was always making jokes. I was really the class clown. And Terry and I, somehow we ended up, sharing obviously on the same team, sharing the same locker room. And we were going 1-15. And somehow every day me and him would be making jokes. And just
Listen, y'all don't know. His man was so hilarious in a lot. One thing we used to say, and people always say, is like, freeze that, yo.
Yeah. We were so, listen, we won one game and lost it. We almost did not win a game. And somehow Terry and I found humor. And it kept it really, honestly, listen, it kept us going. It really did. We could have been sobbing in the locker room, but somehow me and him would make jokes with each other and we would be laughing. We had the greatest time.
Oh.
And that's how our relationship grew and how we became so close. Even when football was over for him and football was over for me, we still stayed in touch. I remember going to LA for the ESPYs and Terry came by to visit and we sat down, we talked, and I loved him, man. And I was always a kind person to everyone. I was friends with the offensive linemen, the kickers, I was just a very social person. And I think my personality and Terry's personality, obviously look at him and how social he is, and he's kind to everybody. We blended and we became good buddies till, he says 56 years old. Terry, I remember when Terry didn't have a child. I didn't have a child. We were childless cat men, right? But
Childless
Terry,
dogmen. Childless dogmen.
Exactly, dog. So I want to say thank you, Terry.
Yeah, I got
appreciate you.
one more question before
Go
we
ahead,
wrap
go
up
ahead,
real
Betsy.
quickly.
Yeah.
So you've shared so much, and I think it's really going to help break down a lot of the stigma. I hope at least one person listening to this identifies with your story and says to themselves, oh shit, I can do that too, right? Like if Terry Crews can do that, I can do that too. And
Right.
so I'm going to tee up my last question with a quick story. So one day, this was years ago, I was just messing with my husband, just giving him the business. I don't know why he was on my nerves, but he was on my nerves. And so I was just getting on him. And this changed my whole life. He stopped. And my husband's a big guy. He stopped and he looked at me and he goes, Missy, he goes, just because I'm a big guy doesn't mean I have emotions. So with all the stuff that you're saying to me right now, I need you to understand that just because I'm a big guy, it doesn't mean it doesn't affect me and that I'm not feeling it. And I went, it stopped me in my tracks.
Wow.
And I wasn't even being that rude, but I'd just given him the business, you know? So, but it changed my whole perspective because I realized maybe I am giving him a little bit more of a hard time because he's a big guy and da-da-da-da-da-da-da.
And he could take it.
Yeah, which was like, it's like, what a faulty mindset. But I didn't even realize that I was doing that until he stopped me and said that. So what I want to ask you, Terry, is like, what would you say to the men out there who are thinking similar lines, like I've been through similar stuff where they feel like they do have to take it, or I have to provide for my family, or I have to be the leader, or I have to suck this all in because I have to be the provider, or this is my sort of, everyone expects me to be the big top football player, or whatever it is, what doesn't matter. But like, what would you say to somebody who is suffering, but is not taking that step to get help because of who they think they feel they have to be to other people?
That's a great question. First of all, one thing that helped me was watching movies, you know, and allowing myself to feel empathy. I'll never forget, I had an inability to cry.
Wow.
There were times when my wife had been through miscarriages, and I remember just not crying, you know, just I couldn't do it because I held this big guy thing, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Once I went to therapy and I started to understand, I started to look at myself as a little kid. And I remember having a picture on my desk, and it would literally be me. It was me. My teeth were missing, the whole thing. And in counseling, I realized at no time in my life did I ever stop being that little boy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And the tears started flowing. Right. It's hard to even think about it now.
No, you have to honor him, right?
Yes.
Honor that little boy.
That's that little boy. I am him.
Mm-hmm.
He's still in me. It hit me, and it's here because I was crying because remember when you watched your daddy beat your mama? Remember when, you know, you felt like you were missing out? Remember the time you had your heart broken? Remember those? And all of a sudden, I became that little boy, and the tears started to flow. That would be the advice I would have to any man right now, is to just go find a little picture of themselves at a very young age and talk to them.
Yeah.
You're mentor to that little boy, yourself. You know, cry for him. Feel what he's feeling. All the disappointments, all the heartbreak, because we all have it. We all, there's nobody on earth who has not experienced
Face trauma.
Yeah, if you're a human being, you've been through it, right?
And talk to yourself as a little boy or a little girl. And oh my goodness. And I have to say, for the big guys, there was always a time when you were a little guy.
Oh, that's good.
Never ever. Everybody who ends up big started out little.
That's a good one.
You know what I mean?
That's
And that's where we have to go. We have to go to that. And
I love that.
I think that's a really, really great way to connect.
I love that.
Emotion.
I'm married to a really big guy. I'm married to 6'9" Jamal Mashburn, and I'm going to go have a conversation as soon as we're done. Like, hey, can I talk to your little self?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Terry,
excellent, Terry. Thank you.
Terry, we appreciate you. I was just thinking, a question just came to me. What's number one with everything you do? So you've done movies, you've produced, you have been TV shows, you've been on game
Furniture
shows,
designer, artist.
You've done everything. Voiceovers. What's most important? Which trophy is the most important on your list? The Super Bowl trophy, Oscar, Emmy, which one is number one for you? Golden Globe, which one do you see as number one?
I'm going to tell you what's number one. The number one thing is when I went to Congress on behalf of the Sexual Assault Victims Bill of Rights, and I'm standing in front of the United States government and all these senators telling my story, and the bill passes. We have a Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights right now. And I had a chance to help Miss Amanda Wynn. She's a Nobel Prize winner who was raped in college. And she came out and she said, they won't listen to me, Terry. I need you to come with me so they can hear me.
Wow.
Right.
Isn't that amazing? Like,
that's amazing.
It's crazy, but it's amazing. But she was like, they need a big male celebrity to make them understand, wait a minute, this happens to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And the bill passed.
Wow.
Proudest moment of my life.
Well, we thank you for that.
I knew it changed. Like you changing government for real.
Right. Yeah.
That's better than any award that you could just put on a mantelpiece. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, you did something completely iconic that changes the lives of sexual assault victims worldwide, or at least U.S. nationwide, and hopefully it will have a global impact. And on behalf of sexual assault victims, myself included, we thank you for standing up and answering the call when she asked for the support person, for the person she knew that they would listen to. And
newspapers.
it was so amazing having you on the podcast today. This was so incredible. I learned so much stuff about you. I don't know if you noticed early in the beginning, I was crying when you started telling the story between your father and your mother, because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm already crying because so much aligned. And I can see how you would be friends with Robert and how you two are very similar. So that was great that Robert could invite you to the show today. I'm really glad that you were on America's Got Talent as host and not Robert, because I don't know how that would look. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening today and joining us on the Bailey and Buck podcast with Terry Crews. Thank you so much.
Terry.
Thank you.